them with that energy, I will reign with blood and horror on this earth.
Depart.
Hello again. Welcome to my channel. It's titled Martin Braden, Dispelling the Accusatory Fog. I'm the Martin Braden mentioned in the title. And I just got back from my 17-day tour of 40 Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints church history sites that I talked about in my last video I did just before going on this tour. I want to apologize that I didn't do any new videos while I was on this trip, like I said I was going to do. But when you hear what I have to say about this adventure, you will know why that didn't happen. Let me say up front that my trip, as you can imagine, was absolutely incredible and transformational. That's for sure. Man, oh man, it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience for my wife Kathleen and I. It's just one more dream that we've been able to check off our bucket list. That said, if you've watched some of my videos before this one, then I suspect you will have already noticed something very different about my head, and in particular about my forehead, which hasn't been there before. Yes, it's my scar right here. Okay? I'm taking a moment to do this short video for you as an introduction to the next video I'm going to be doing about this incredible church history sites tour that I just returned from. But before I did, I wanted you to understand what happened to me and why I chose not to do any video posts during this trip, as I visited those 40 sites in just 17 days. Now, if you take 2 days off for travel time to go to the East Coast and then coming back home, it actually was 15 days. As you can imagine, it was a grueling, but a very happy, grueling experience. We got up every morning at 5:45 a.m. and hurried on to get on the road by 7 a.m. Sometimes it was as late as 7:30 due to the breakfast and getting all the luggage back on the bus, as we stayed only one night most of the time as we went to each of the sites. Every single day was jam-packed with stops and visits where we'd jump off the bus at a site, and after 1 or 2 hours, sometimes 3, we'd jump right back on the bus to drive to the next site for that day. Each day was a full day of visiting 2 and maybe even 3 sites, along with lunch in between and later dinner in between, all the way up to 8:30, 9 o'clock for our last site of the day. Besides the site visits, there were additional activities throughout the day, all the way up to 10:30 p.m. every single night. It was a blur for me at times, but a very exciting and enjoyable, happy blur. In short, my wife and I were quite spent by the end of each day, and so we quickly fell asleep almost immediately upon laying our heads on our pillows. Now, before I continue, I want to give a warning to you as you're watching this video right now. If you're queasy about cuts and gashes, I don't want you to be startled by seeing something you prefer not seeing. So, this is because I'm going to be bringing on some pictures to show my viewers who'd like to see what happened to me while on this astonishing church history site tour. Some people like that sort of stuff. It's quite a wound on my forehead that I'm going to show you. And so when I say close your eyes, that's when you should turn away or close your eyes while I'm showing what happened to me and when it happened and why it happened. Once I'm done showing and discussing what happened to my head, I'll then say, okay, we're good. You can turn back around and start watching the video again, okay? Keep that in mind. Great. About 3 days into our trip, we arrived at Nauvoo, Illinois, and had an appointment with Nauvoo's magnificent temple. Kathleen and I were helping the youth get ready to their proxy work called Baptisms for the Dead. When these ordinances are performed by proxy for a deceased person, be it a deceased relative or another person who has been deceased for years, it gives those individuals the opportunity to leave what's called spirit prison if and when they accept this proxy ordinance that's been performed on their behalf, or they can simply say, no thanks. This and all the rest of the temple ordinances aren't forced upon anyone, just as the proxy work that Jesus did for you and I was not forced on any of us. It's called the atonement. Jesus' atonement isn't forced on anyone, like I said, ever. Each of us must choose to accept Jesus' work of atonement, which he performed in the Garden of Gethsemane and on the cross at Calvary for all of us. Or we can choose to reject it. That said, if you look closely at the 12 oxen in this picture, and more particularly down at their feet, you will notice their hoofs are covered up to their ankles. This is because when the Nauvoo Temple and its baptistry were originally built, the font was built with wood that sat upon the backs of 12 oxen. It was large enough for two baptisms to be performed in it at the same time. It's incredible. But after a while, the font leaked, and since they stood on a dirt floor, it soon became muddy, and the oxen's hoofs sank down into the mud all the way to their ankles and above. When this Nauvoo Temple was built, this brand new one, the president of the church at the time, President Gordon B. Hinckley, told the sculptor to have all of the oxen hoofs be covered above their ankles too, just like the oxen's hoofs were sunken in mud in the original baptistry. When we arrived to do baptisms for the dead, we all went into a little building that is just next to the temple itself. The arrow's pointing to it right now. It's across a little street from the northeast side of the temple. The youth were getting ready to go into the baptistry at the temple. They showed their recommends and were given instructions so they could be ready to enter the temple. I was part of the first group of boys that had started walking over to the temple itself where the actual baptistry is. As you can see here, off to the left of this red circle is part of the fence, if you look closely, that surrounds the temple. It goes all the way to the left and on around the front and comes all the way back around. Here's an enlarged picture of where the steps were that I was stepping onto so I could continue walking over to the temple and do the baptismal ordinances with my small group of young men. You can't see it very well, but you can see the iron rod fence surrounding the entirety of the temple grounds going to the left of those posts where that circle is. There being a post on each side of the two steps in between those two posts. You can also see to the side of those two steps the 4-inch iron rod post. Those are 4 inches. And the fence going to the left. The iron post I grabbed a hold of was, like I said, about 4 inches square and is a part of the iron post fence that sits at the top of the second step leading to the sidewalk or walkway you see there going to the left that leads to the temple entrance. This particular spot only had 2 steps to step up on, and then as you can see you walk on a large walkway going from the stairs towards the temple where you go inside the temple itself. I should tell you that I have type 2 diabetes, and that's led to a case of neuropathy in my feet and ankles. And so I often find that I need a railing to help steady me and support me so I can keep my balance as I take the steps up the staircase. Anyway, these 2 steps did not have a rail to hold on to on either side, and since the group was walking pretty fast, I wanted to keep up with them. And as I approached these 2 steps, I noticed there wasn't a railing to hold on to, and I began to focus and looking for something to hold on to so it could help me up the steps, and I saw the large iron square post on the right of the steps as I approached the steps, and so I grabbed it. But focusing on grabbing this iron post, I wasn't as focused as I should have been on those 2 steps and taking a moment to look down to measure their height, etc., as I stepped onto them. And so my left foot's toe caught the lip of that second step, and sure enough, and I tripped and began to go headlong towards the ground. I knew I didn't want to hit the ground hard like I was going to, where I could maybe break a hip or something, and so I immediately gripped tighter onto that iron rod. Hold to the rod, the 4-inch iron post that I was holding on to. And in doing so, it made my whole body whip up and around into the right side there where I was holding the post. And in a flash of a second, my head went right into the small stretch of iron fence post that I was holding on to. My forehead hit smack dab on one of the smaller iron rod posts and continued on going between 2 small posts of that small portion of fence, and I stopped on because it hit my shoulders. What's crazy is it happened in a fraction of a second, like I said, and so I didn't have time to think what I was to do or whatever. My body just did what it did, and I was stunned by the impact, which was incredibly hard. Yet my shoulders weren't hurt and stopping me. It was great. That said, the impact on that iron rod split the skin of my forehead wide open upon impact, just like a small melon, and as you can well know, the head has a tendency to bleed profusely. So, okay, you should turn away. Hello, you should turn away or close your eyes now because I'm going to show a few pictures of my forehead. Here's what the open wound looked like at the temple while I waited to go to the emergency room at the hospital in Carthage, which was about 35 miles away. It looks pretty bad, didn't it? But I had someone help me walk back to the little building where we started, and one of the other chaperones got an ice pack, and someone else called the hospital and volunteered to drive my wife and I to the emergency room at the hospital in Carthage. And so that's what I looked like getting in the truck to head on to Carthage. It wasn't long before my arm started to get really tired holding it up. But here's what it looked like after the doctor got it all stitched up. It was about 3 inches long and took 13 stitches to tighten it all up. While I was getting stitched up, the kids did their temple work for about an hour and a half, and then they were able to check out a few stores where they could shop that were on a little strip of stores by the old small Nauvoo downtown area up above by the temple, east southeast of the temple. I came back 30 minutes after we were supposed to have been off and going again, and so while they were waiting for me, like I said, the youth were able to check out the little strip of stores and shops that are east of the temple grounds, and I'm showing it by the circle there. They loved it because there wasn't going to be enough time to do that sort of thing this trip, but my accident made it happen for them. I guess I helped them. Let me mention that when Kathleen and I got to the hospital, the doctor and 4 nurses took charge, and the doctor did an incredible job of stitching me up, as you just saw. He then told us that the stitches needed to come out in 5 days or the scarring would be more severe. And so, because I didn't want to mess up the tour schedule more than I had already done, Kathleen watched a YouTube video on how to take stitches out, and with her sterilized nail clippers in hand and her sterilized tweezers that she brought with her, she took out the 13 stitches 5 days later. I think it was at 7 a.m. in the morning on a Sunday. I now call her Dr. Braden. As you can see by this video you're watching right now, my scar is healing up really well, and that's because my wife, or should I say Dr. Braden, has been taking good care of me every single day since the accident. While visiting Nauvoo, I had intended to bring home some kind of souvenir to remind me of my visit to Nauvoo and its beautiful temple. I think I have a good souvenir for memory's sake right here on my head. Anyway, I also have this little acorn right here, this little teeny acorn. It's just so fun that I picked up from off the temple grounds that I decided to save and bring home with me as well. It's a small acorn that would have grown into a huge fruitful tree. I felt it would be a good micro lesson example of how the church started and how it has grown into 17 plus million members of the church and kingdom of God here on earth. I love it. I also like the fact that each ring of the tree it came from can represent a year of history along with its many stories. As I look back at this mishap that I experienced, I can now tell myself, Marty, at least you didn't let go of the iron rod. I now have access to more than 1,500 pictures and several short video clips that I and my fellow travelers of 30th Youth and 6 chaperones, as well as our tour guide, Aaron Tesh, shown in this picture, took during this incredibly transformational trip. Of course, I don't intend to bore you with a travelogue type video, but I will share a few pictures and videos as part of the next video I'm going to do on the church history sites I saw on this tour. Since I won't be showing and talking about them like a family trip, I don't want to bore you to death, I will still put a link to them down in the link to that video's description. It will be a Google Drive link to their file where you can go and see all 1,500 pictures and a few of those short videos that I took if you're interested in that sort of thing. You'll be able to see everywhere we went, and you'll notice that quite a few of the pictures are really cool, as are several of the short videos that these kids took and made and then loaded up onto what's called Photo Circle. The actual topic I'm going to be discussing on in that video will be me giving my answer to the question, considering where my testimony of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Restored Gospel was just 2.5 weeks ago, and considering how I felt about its unique history, how would I describe my testimony and feelings about the church and its history now, just 2.5 weeks later? In other words, what changed, if anything? What did I learn and or gain from visiting these 40 church history sites in person? What changed, if anything, like I said, now that I'm 71? So there you go. Until next time, when I post that video about the Church History Sites Tour, I want to wish you continued success. Goodbye. Love you.